Welcome to this week's edition of the Life in San Antonio, Texas podcast. And today we're going to go into everything that you need to know about the national real estate news, how it affects San Antonio, as well as all the little details that you need to know about what is going on in San Antonio. My name is Michael McCall. I am the owner of the Life in San Antonio, Texas home group, and I run this channel, Life in San Antonio, Texas. And today we're going to talk about a few different things. The most important being this massive ridiculous viral tweet that this guy Nick Gurley was talking about with how he thinks that the Airbnb crash is coming, and he gave some details to support that. So we're going to get into that and see what exactly that means. We're also going to talk about how little inventory is out there on the market in the national spotlight. I mean, as far as national real estate goes, and how that's affecting San Antonio. And also talk about if San Antonio's real estate inventory is actually shrinking or not, and what's going on with that, and how that's affecting prices as well. And then we're also going to get into a few little details about specifically what is going on in San Antonio with how many new subdivisions are getting permitted out, what builders are saying right now, how the builders' resilience in San Antonio is continuing strong, and then also some news on the Barbacoa and Big Red Festival that you might want to know for later this year. So first, to start off with, we're going to get into this whole Airbnb thing. But before we get into that, I do want to remind you guys that we are a big group here in San Antonio where I just absolutely love helping you guys. I personally, like I said, I own and run the Life in San Antonio, Texas home group. I have personally helped hundreds of people just like you move to San Antonio. So if you have any questions at all about moving to San Antonio, do not hesitate to reach out. You can call, text, or email us anytime. You can also message us on social media, whatever is easiest for you guys. Reach out. My information, our information is down below this and right here if you're watching this video. So let's get into this Airbnb situation. So this guy, Nick Gurley, he put out this viral tweet on how an Airbnb crash is imminent, especially in Austin and Phoenix. He thinks that's going to be the hub of where this crash is going to come from. And he pointed out some specific data that he got about how the total revenue had decreased drastically between May of 2022 and May of 2023. And if you look at the numbers, they're pretty stark as far as, drastic decreases. I mean, we're looking at, 45 to 50% decreases in total revenue in these markets. Now that, looking at it as face value, you would think that that is definitely, sign of some kind of crash going on. But there's a lot of other stuff to look at too, especially on this. I mean, one thing that I noticed, which you probably have noticed by looking at this picture right here, is that San Antonio is actually number 5 on the list. So what does that mean for San Antonio also? Well, San Antonio as a whole has always been super resilient whenever it comes to these kind of market corrections, market crashes. I mean, we've had a very, very little, decrease in prices over the last year. Whenever things, went down after the interest rates went and skyrocketed last summer. I mean, we had, I think it was probably about a 7 to 8-ish% correction, but it was also towards the end of last year. We always have a seasonal correction around that time. So when you're looking from, the summer to January, February, like we were looking, there really wasn't that much of a difference when you look at the seasonally adjusted numbers. Basically, since February of this year, our numbers have continued to increase. And that just kind of shows the resiliency of San Antonio as a whole. And then, I've talked about it multiple times on this channel. I talk about it all the time. Back in 2008, we did not have a major crash. I mean, we had a very, very strong decrease in the total number of sales like we're having right now, but the overall prices just plateaued and never really decreased much at all. So it kind of plateaued for a few years and then eventually started going back up, which is kind of what I'm expecting to happen here too. When you look at Austin's prices skyrocketed so much in the last year or 2 or 3 really, that there was really a big need for a pretty large correction. And they had a drastic price drop of over 10% in that same time period from last summer to earlier this year. They've kind of corrected themselves as well and kind of stabilized. So they're still having a better summer than most people thought was going to happen. But talking about this Airbnb stuff specifically, looking at travel, like I said, they were talking about how Austin and Phoenix was going to be the hub of this drop. And this guy, Nick Gurley, thinks that there was going to be a flood of inventory coming from Airbnb hosts selling off towards the end of this year after the summer months. And I think that could happen. I don't think that, there's going to be anybody that thinks that we're just in this bubble and that Airbnb is going to continue to just go and go and go and make people millions of dollars constantly. I mean, there were so many people over the last 2 years, I think, that saw the benefit of Airbnb, especially after being stuck in their homes. They wanted to invest in something that was a quick, easy cash. They thought Airbnb was going to be the route that they could go for that. And so they would buy, these houses, and sometimes they would buy these older houses, flip them up, and make them into these Airbnb homes and think that they can make a ton of money off of it. So I think that in some of those situations, and downtown San Antonio is going to be one of those situations where you're going to have some of these Airbnb hosts that maybe bought these homes a year or two ago, and it is not as easy as they thought it was going to be, and so they're going to start selling some of those off. I think that that's going to happen a lot in Austin as well, especially being that the prices were so high over the last 2 years that there may be some people that bought at an extremely high rate. They may have bought a tiny little 1,000 to 1,300 square foot home in downtown Austin, the Airbnb, for $600,000-700,000, and they're not able to make that back anymore. So you may see those people start to take a loss and sell those homes off. But I don't think it's going to be as drastic as what this guy's talking about. I mean, he's talking about million, potentially homes coming on the market, which again, it was the way he worded that. I think it was a little bit misleading. There's over a million. I think I think what he said was that there was a million Airbnbs throughout the country that, could potentially be sold at the end of this year. I mean, realistically, it is not going to happen that many of them are going to sell. But if you look at the numbers between 2021 and 2022, the increase in inventory of Airbnbs and short-term rentals in the country as a whole was about 25%. So you can see there is a massive increase in the supply. And looking at supply and demand, that's what we're dealing with right now with the real estate industry and why prices haven't gone down. Supply and demand on the Airbnb is saying that those prices are either going to come down or you're going to just have much lower occupancy rates. And that's going to ultimately affect your profitability and ultimately affect whether or not you can actually afford to keep this home as a short-term rental. So I think that is going to play a role, and I do think that there will be some sort of correction. There will be a decent amount of these Airbnb hosts that end up needing to sell these places because they're not able to make the money they thought they were going to make. I don't think travel is going to increase any more than it already has. It increased drastically from 2020 to 2021 just because of the pandemic. 2021, everybody was traveling when they could, finally, after sitting around for a year. Decreased again last year, and it's going to decrease again a little bit this year, I think, and then hopefully I'm guessing it's going to plateau. Now, looking at San Antonio and how this is going to affect San Antonio specifically, we actually just had the what do they call it? What was it? The U.S. Travel Association's annual conference here at San Antonio. And a lot of the experts that are in the travel industry are thinking this is going to have a massive impact on San Antonio's travel. So I think that along with just the stability of San Antonio, how it's already a lot more affordable. I mean, it's already surpassed Austin and a lot of the rankings as far as top travel destinations in Texas. I mean, they're currently San Antonio, New Braunfels area is currently number 11 on the list nationally and number 1 in Texas for the top travel destinations to come to. So, we're over Austin, we're over Houston. I mean, and we're also a lot more affordable than these places too. So that's really going to draw a lot of people here as far as travel goes. So I think that San Antonio, again, will continue to fare well in some of these crashes. And I think that if this does end up being some kind of crash, where there is a lot more homes that are being sold off from Airbnb hosts, that San Antonio is going to fare a lot better than a lot of these other places like Austin and Phoenix that typically, get hit the hardest with these real estate crashes. Now, looking at some other things with this, I think that really that there's going to be inventory that needs to be added to the real estate market. And I think that if Airbnb, this quote unquote crash that could potentially come from this, I think that if that does happen, I think it will be a welcome sign personally. I really think that we could use a lot more inventory on the market right now because nationally we are at an extreme shortage of inventory. We have much fewer listings than we've had in recent years. I mean, you can look at some of these graphs right here. You can see the number of listings that were much lower. And, the numbers may look like, total active listings are a little bit higher than we had the last couple of years, but that doesn't take into account the total number of pending sales. So the total number of pending sales is much, much lower, and total number of sold homes altogether is much, much lower than it has been over the last 2 years. Last couple of years with interest rates being so much lower, everything that went on the market was sold immediately. That is not the case anymore. The good homes that are coming on the market right now are sitting 2-3 months right now. I mean, it's very, very much getting into a more balanced market. I mean, we're still, especially in San Antonio, we're still in a more seller heavy market to where, If we have less than 6 months of inventory, then we have, a seller's market. That's just the numbers that you calculate and look at with that. So we're still at about a 3.5-ish months of inventory on the market right now, and our total inventory is lower. So you can just kind of see how many fewer homes are being sold right now because our lower inventory, which would typically equate to a much less amount of supply, as far as the demand goes. That's not the case right now. I mean, our demand is lower, our supply is lower. So total, we're looking at, the 3.5 months inventory. So, looking at the numbers on that nationally, last week, we only added 848 listings to the total active amount of listings. Way, way too few. I mean, just this time last year when we were increasing in inventory because the interest rates were starting to go up. I mean, this exact same week last year, we added over 30,000 new listings in this week. So, I mean, you can see that's a massive difference between this year and last year. Total active listing count right now is 465,755 homes on the market. For context, when we're looking at what a truly or typical balanced market is, back in 2015, when we really had a very, very balanced market, it wasn't really a buyer's market, it wasn't really a seller's market. We'd kind of gotten out of that recession hole and we were kind of balancing things out. We had over 1,180,000 homes on the active market. So we're not even to half of that point right now with where we're at currently. And a lot of people are thinking that a crash is coming. That is just not the case. Whenever you have this few homes on the market, there's no way for a crash to come because people are still having to move. That's for work, for, whether it's, being relocated across the country, whether it's a lifestyle change, you're in that small 1,200 square foot house that you bought a few years ago, and whoops, all of a sudden now you have 4 kids. That's not going to work anymore. You got to find something bigger. So people are having to move. That's just the nature of life. And that's just the cycle of real estate. So there are still transactions being made with as few of listings that are on the market right now. That's not going to equate to a price drop unless we get more inventory. That's the only thing that's going to create that price drop that a lot of people in real estate market crash that a lot of people keep talking about the last few years. And by the way, this guy, Nick Gurley, that was, we're talking about with the Airbnb stuff, forgot to mention, looking at his stuff, take it with a grain of salt. He's been predicting a real estate crash for as long as he has been on social media, which has been years. I mean, so he's always one of those chicken little, sky is falling kind of guys. So kind of going back to this stuff with, the market as a whole, I don't see it crashing anytime soon. Honestly, if interest rates go down below 6% and they get down into those 5.5% range, I think we're going to see a massive boom again. So I think the Fed is actually doing a good thing right now in keeping interest rates higher so that we don't get to that point. We need to continue to balance this out a little bit longer so that we don't have a massive increase in prices and this massive bidding wars like we've had the last couple of years. We don't want to get to that point again. It's like I said, it's supply and demand. Looking at San Antonio as a whole, as far as our inventory, we've dropped in the total number of active listings from last week to this week. I mean, last week I mentioned to you that we were over 9,600. This week we're at 9,513 as of recording this video. So we've dropped over 100 listings on the total amount that we have active on the market. It's going in the wrong direction. We need to go in the other direction. So again, supply and demand, we're not going to be dropping prices anytime soon because of this, that we're seeing right now. It's just not going to happen. Now, getting into our local San Antonio updates, we had quite a few permits actually pulled last week. So builders are starting to increase their activity a little bit more. Their builder confidence is going up. We've had 9 permits that were submitted to the San Antonio Planning Commission last week to their meeting. Minimum over 300 new residential homes to be built in those communities that were requested for permits. And that doesn't even include one of the communities, which is a brand new community that's going to be going up through D.R. Horton. out in the Alamo Ranch area. So that's going to be even more than that. I may double that number by itself. I mean, we currently have over 9,000 homes in the permitting phase for all of San Antonio. So builders are extremely confident right now and continuing to build a lot of houses in San Antonio. Looking at their total numbers, I mean, their adaptability has just been great with all this. I mean, they're kind of what's been keeping San Antonio's market afloat and keeping a lot more homes being sold than there actually would have been, because looking at these 7% interest rates, they make a drastic difference between what the 3 and 4% interest rates were a couple of years ago. So that is what caused that drop in sales and prices after last summer whenever interest rates skyrocketed. But the builders were adapting, and because they had these margins, they were able to buy down these rates because they own the lending company, they own the title company, they own the construction company, they have the whole package. They are able to kind of squeeze each of these margins on each of these different aspects to keep selling homes, and they're able to offer really low interest rates. I mean, I've seen interest rates with builders currently right now that they're offering, if you close by the end of July, I've seen some that are in like the high 4% range and 5%. I mean, there are builders out there that are just taking hits on buying down these rates so that they can continue to sell homes, and it's making a huge difference for home buyers out there. The prices are still a premium for new builds. They're not as low as what the typical resale would be. I mean, if you're looking at a new build neighborhood, if you're looking at a house that's 2 or 3 years old, you're gonna get a much better deal on it than if you were to buy a brand new home. But is it worth paying a little bit extra so that you're in a brand new home and get all those incentives, closing costs, the interest rate buy down that you are getting with the builder versus getting a 7%, 7.25% interest rate on a resale home that's been lived in for a couple of years? So it's driving a lot of people to new construction, like it always has. The builders are just really good about that. So San Antonio is going to continue to be a very strong place for builders to continue building at. And with the affordability here, it's going to bring a lot of people, I think, from a lot of other places still. I mean, people that maybe were looking at Austin before, I've helped several of them. So, again, if you're looking to buy in this area, looking to buy a new build, I've helped a ton of people buy those new builds. So reach out, and we can kind of talk about what your options are for on that. Even if you just want to move here, rent for a little bit, and build from the ground up, so you can pick out all your options. Give me a call and we can talk about which builders are the best ones for that and which neighborhoods you need to look at. I mean, there's a lot of things that these builders are doing that are really helping this whole situation. Now, getting into the Barbacoa and Big Red Festival, me personally, I've never been a huge Barbacoa guy, but my wife loves her Barbacoa and Big Red, especially when we go over to the Burnt Bean over in Seguin. I don't know if you've ever been over to that, but their Barbacoa is outstanding. She always gets a bottle of Big Red to go with that when we go get that on Sunday mornings. But this is a big deal in San Antonio. It's been going on for a while now. This will be the 11th year that we do this. They didn't do it in 2020 and 2021. Did it last year. But this year it's going to be on October 7th and October 8th, and it's going to be at the R&J Music Festival on the south side of town. So if you're interested in that, make sure you get your tickets and go check that out. Now, we don't have any Q&A this week either. We didn't get any questions last week, so be sure that you are commenting those questions, and also comment below if you got any thoughts on that whole Airbnb situation too. I want to hear what you guys are thinking on all of this stuff. So make sure you're commenting below, comment your questions so I can answer those next week. And again, be sure you subscribe to this channel, subscribe to this podcast so that you can be updated anytime I post these new ones every single week from here on out. And let me know what you guys are thinking of this new podcast format, and we'll continue to make these. As long as you guys want to see them, we'll continue to make them. So until next week, we'll see y'all there.